Hello and welcome to the first new episode of Northwest News Week for 2023. I'm Mitchell Ringos. Well, the province's Finance Committee traveled to Kenora this past week for a pre-budget consultation meeting. One major theme that emerged was the question of one-size-fits-all funding models and the need to consider the unique aspects of the North during the Ontario budget process. Lee Noonan was there.
Municipalities, service providers, industry, and citizen groups came out to the meeting, each making their case to the committee to consider their funding priorities in the provincial budget.
We have a smaller tax base. We can afford with local taxes to fix our infrastructure deficit. The numbers do not work.
Red Lake Mayor Fred Moda echoed that sentiment, saying that with a population of just over 4,000, the tax base simply can't support a new arena without provincial help. And while Dryden Mayor Jack Harrison is also concerned about infrastructure, he had a very different ask. Harrison wants the province to cover 35% of the city's policing costs over the next 3 years.
It's taking up about 17.5% of our budget, the policing costs, and what that is it's impacting our ability to repair, maintain our infrastructure, necessary repairs for our sewer and water, say, and other service levels.
Red Lake Margaret Koshner Memorial Hospital officials want to see hospital staffing in the north prioritized before the south, arguing that the distance between hospitals makes the impact of an ER closure in the region more severe. The KDSB's Henry Wall also touched on the question of geography, explaining that the vastness of the region has a big impact on the per capita cost of operations.
We need to have at least nine different offices so that we can actually help people. It would be unrealistic to have an office in Kenora and expect a family from Pickle Lake to drive 7-8 hours to get here.
That things often work differently in the north is something MPP Dave Smith, Parliamentary Assistant for Northern Affairs and Indigenous Affairs, hopes the committee will take away from their time in Kenora. Not one of the committee members is from a northern riding.
Every time we have an opportunity to come up to one of the northern communities, those members who are on the committee who have never been to Northern Ontario get to see firsthand what some of those differences are and why we have to treat Northern Ontario differently than we do Southern Ontario.
This was the only pre-budget consultation meeting planned in the region. Another that had been scheduled in Red Lake was canceled when there weren't enough speakers registered, but registration is still open in a number of other locations throughout the province for anyone who'd like to speak, either by traveling there personally or virtually. Registration information is available at ola.org. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
In total, a dozen deputations were made during the consultation meeting in Kenora, with requests coming from a wide variety of groups, each hoping to be considered in the province's 2023 budget. Vasilios Bellos has more.
The KDSB, in partnership with Seven Generations Education Institute, is asking the province for $21 million to cover 75% of the capital costs for an expansion to the Seven Gens Kenora campus. That would include residential units for students and their families.
Student dorms, like bachelor units, but also multi-bedroom, because we do know that we have single parents who are looking to get an education who have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, counting children. And what we also want to end is the cyclical, just a generational cycle of poverty as well, knowing that if we help mom, we will help the children.
The KDSB also made an appeal for more affordable housing supply, while Seven Generations is asking for dedicated operational funding.
One of the things we have to do is rent out half of this building in order to make ends meet.
The Kenora CMHA is also asking for operational funding. They're looking for an increase of at least 8%, saying their budget has not kept up with increasing demands and that they are struggling to retain staff.
We simply cannot do more or provide even the same level of service when we aren't resourced properly.
The Kenora Seniors Coalition wants provincial support for a safe consumption site in the city, although MPP Dave Smith encouraged the group to find a local proponent, as the government itself doesn't lead the process.
Citizens of Kenora, young and old, are ready for action to be taken to clean up our streets.
The Northwest Business Center is looking for a funding increase, saying their budget hasn't gone up in more than 10 years. Forestry companies Weyerhaeuser and Resolute are both asking for the province to address a skilled labor shortage and to divert byproducts of the industry away from landfills.
It's sustainable, it has a positive element to climate change, and yet the government doesn't do enough to support this industry.
The red tape in order to get a landfill is timely and cost prohibitive, so we need the government to look at ways of utilizing the biomass that's available in Ontario for other things and not going to landfills.
One group that did not ask for provincial funding was the District of Kenora Unincorporated Areas Ratepayers Association. They pay the province directly for some services that might normally be handled by a municipality. They want more transparency on where their money is going, and they want to see some of their money directed into municipal long-term care. Vasilios Bellows, TBT News.
A Dryden area man was sentenced earlier this month after previously pleading guilty to second-degree murder in the deaths of 2 seniors in the winter of 2020. 39-year-old Justin Desatel received an automatic life sentence at the Kenora courthouse on January 5th. The murder charges stem from a violent rampage at the Arbor Jade Trailer Park just north of Dryden in March of 2020. 5 people were attacked, and 78-year-old Mervyn Brownlee was later found dead in his trailer. Another victim, 72-year-old Dorothy Dodd Brown, died in hospital 3 weeks later. Desatel pleaded guilty in August to 2 counts of second-degree murder, along with other charges included aggravated assault. The only thing still to be determined in court was when he can apply for parole. The judge agreed to a joint submission from the Crown and the defense for 13 years of parole ineligibility. Public safety concerns are boiling over in Kenora after a series of violent incidents at local businesses over the holidays. But the community is divided on how to respond. City Council held a special meeting in late December to discuss the issues. Lee Noonan reports.
A special meeting of Kenora Council, originally scheduled for the new year, was moved up in response to 3 incidents over the past month.
We have a lot of problems here. We need to start coming up with solutions, whether it's short-term, medium-term, long-term. This is the start of the journey. This is the start of where we're going to try and go as a community. So,
on December 23rd, a store owner posted video online of an alleged assault committed against her. The video has been viewed thousands of times and attracted hundreds of comments. Police have now laid charges in that case and in another that took place at the local Red Apple store on December 10th.
We continue to be uptown, and we just hope that people call stuff in if they see it again. The shop owners have been really good with us with calling. We go in, we are definitely well received when we're doing our foot patrol.
The council meeting was organized in just 24 hours and broke with protocol in order to open the floor to all who wanted to comment.
The answers from our business group, they're stunned right now. I'm going to tell you that right now. Talking to them, being downtown, we've never seen this level to this point ever in Kenora.
While several people spoke to council from the perspective of business owners or employees concerned for their safety at work, more were there to express their concern for vulnerable populations in the city as the rhetoric becomes heated.
We've been reading posts about vigilantism and people are going to, take things into their own hands about driving people out to the edge of the city and dropping them off. And it's very unnerving for those of us who care about we think maybe 150 people, homeless people in Kenora.
Council returned after several hours with a number of recommendations, and councillors seem generally in agreement that the issue will require a compassionate response that addresses the safety and well-being of all residents.
That hatred and violence is not the way out of this. Shipping people away is not the way out of this. I'm feeling like our community is ready at individual levels, at business levels, to really all contribute to whatever the solution looks like.
Lee Noonan, TBT News.
We'll be right back with a story from Atikokan, where MPP Kevin Holland made a number of funding announcements. Welcome back. Police and municipal officials in Kenora have promised to take swift action to address public safety. This after a series of violent incidents at local businesses that prompted a special city council meeting in late December. Lee Noonan reports.
The doors are staying locked now at Island Girl women's clothing shop, and customers have to ring a bell to access the store. Owner Michelle Livingston had the bell installed following a December 23rd incident in which a man was charged with assaulting her at her store.
I was scared and I did not feel safe.
Livingstone shared surveillance video of the altercation on social media, as well as live streaming the aftermath.
I have to deal with people breaking into my store, drug addicts shooting up, everything else, and this is not right. If you want Island Girl to stay around, if you want businesses in Kenora, then we have to put a stop to this.
A number of other business owners spoke at a special council meeting on public safety, all in agreement that crime in the downtown core was making it very difficult to run a business, with frequent break-ins and some employees afraid to come into work. Opinions differed dramatically, however, on how to address the issue. In the end, council directed administration to move forward with the community safety and well-being plan and to seek a commitment for increased OPP patrols. The local OPP has said they will be making changes to their frontline response.
Going the regular spots, trying to make sure no one's doing, the break and enters or the thefts, but then we're also trying to drive around and make sure everyone's safe and no one's is going to freeze to death or overdose.
Increased police presence is coming, with construction already in progress on a new downtown OPP office. And Canfield is optimistic that planned housing projects will help curb the issue. Housing is also a key part of the solution, according to Marlene Elder, co-founder of Kenora Moving Forward, a homelessness advocacy group. The group wants Kenora to model a housing solution after the U.S. city of Houston.
They sort of triaged everybody and, okay, all the agencies, who can help? What does this one person need? And then, take it further. So I think it really has to, everybody has to support that. It's the community that really has to come together and help each other as neighbors.
In the short term, Elder says simpler steps like opening up public washrooms can make a difference. One point that everyone we heard from agreed on was that urgent change is needed. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Meanwhile, a street outreach doctor in Kenora is concerned about a sharp increase in HIV cases among people who use drugs there. Dr. Johnny Greck says support for programs like the needle exchange are key to curbing transmission, and he's encouraging the community to help support people who are at risk.
If it also feels right to you to be able to help people who use drugs and to help that population who are affected by this, then that will absolutely positively impact what the future of HIV and AIDS looks like in Northwest Ontario. You can make a big difference just by lending a hand.
Greck voiced his concerns at that Kenora Council meeting. He's aware of 16 people diagnosed with HIV since March. The Northwestern Health Unit has confirmed only 9 of those cases over the past year, but that's still more than in the previous 9 years. The NWHU says sharing needles and drug use equipment, along with unprotected sex, are the main risk factors. Dr. Greck wants to see Kenora have an open conversation around HIV and drug use in general, saying education and destigmatization are key pillars of harm reduction.
So that is needle exchange, that is supervised consumption sites. They are essential to help with this issue. There is a totally side conversation about safer opiate supply prescribing as well, which I'm a big advocate for. And that is another harm reduction strategy that can change how we think about people who use drugs. That in turn can prevent a HIV diagnosis.
Greck emphasizes that with modern treatments, people with HIV can live a normal life, comparing the daily medication to a high blood pressure regimen. At least 350 people have been evacuated from Wabsamung Independent Nation due to drinking water contamination. There's currently no running water. The community, according to a statement from Chief Waylon Scott, the water system was shut down on December 23rd after accidental diesel contamination. remediation efforts are ongoing, and officials hope to have the issue resolved by the end of the month. Most of the evacuees are now residing in Winnipeg, while some of the more vulnerable are in Kenora. The federal government's Competition Bureau has given the green light to the proposed merger of two northwestern Ontario's main forestry players on the condition that a pair of regional pulp and paper mills are sold. The Competition Bureau has announced that it's entered into a consent agreement with Domtar Corporation for the acquisition of Resolute forest products. The proposed deal was first announced in October. The agreement comes with the condition that Domtar must sell its Dryden mill and Resolute's Thunder Bay pulp and paper mill to two independent buyers. The two companies released statements on the announcement saying the deal is on track to close in the first half of 2023. Meanwhile, forestry officials were chiming in this week about winter driving conditions on Highway 11 and 17. The Ontario Finance Committee was in Kenora gathering public input for the 2023 budget. The NDP was also there, calling on the Ford government to prioritize highway maintenance in this region. Lee Noonan was there.
NDP finance critic Catherine Fife and Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa were in Kenora this week, calling on the Ford government to bring snow clearing standards on highways 11 and 17 up to par with 400 series highways in southern Ontario.
We've already seen 7 people lose their lives on those highways over the last 2 months. So there is an urgency to invest in transportation and really to put Northern Ontario on an equal playing field.
That's where the tragic events happen. That's where the closures happen because we need a better maintenance. We need to improve because this government again has moved the resources, transportation resources, down to southern Ontario from the north.
With an 8th death on Highway 1117 since those statements were made, and dozens of highway closures already this winter, the NDP members want to see snow clearing in the north improved before allocating resources to new highways in the GTA.
When Doug Ford decides to prioritize the Bradford bypass and Highway 413, which was never in the overall transportation plan for Ontario, and he prioritizes those highways, then Northern Ontario pays the price.
Tom Ratz, a forestry manager with Resolute, asked the committee to consider the economic case for improving northern highway clearing.
Resolute has over 420 trucks a day, every day, on the roads in Northern Ontario.
To avoid shutdowns, Ratz is asking for a review of the highway maintenance funding and contractor system.
When the MTO itself did the snow removal, they didn't allow snow to build up on the Trans-Canada Highway before removing it. And the plows were out and getting rid of the material. Currently, that's not what happens.
Weyerhaeuser's Timberland manager, Eric Holmstrom, agreed.
Tom is correct. Maintenance has dwindled over time. We've seen the number of deaths increase and the number of closures increase, and there's clearly a human element to that and an economic one as well.
Both forestry managers are also asking the province to increase funding for forest access roads to $100 million to match previous funding levels and account for inflation. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
We'll be right back with a story from Atikokan, where MPP Kevin Holland made a number of funding announcements. Welcome back. Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Kevin Holland was in the western part of his riding in late December with a slew of funding announcements for the Atikokan area. In total, more than $2 million was dispersed to a dozen local and regional organizations and businesses. Lee Noonan had that story.
The Atikokan General Hospital came away with the biggest sum, receiving just under $800,000 from the Ministry of Health to upgrade critical infrastructure. The grant will be used to bring the hospital's emergency sprinkler system up to code.
The province has recognized the need to help healthcare providers address urgent infrastructure needs, such as upgrades and replacements of roofs, windows, security systems, and fire alarms systems and backup generators.
The sprinkler is a legislative requirement, and it's also for the safety of the patients and residents. We're really excited to begin the work, and the commitment of the province and the ministry is very evident, and we're really hoping that this support continues as we still have more critical infrastructure that needs to be dealt with in the near future.
Vance Like says the hospital still needs an estimated $2 to $3 million for a new HVAC system, and that they hope to secure funding to complete phase 2 of a planned redevelopment. The hospital was also one of 4 local employers to receive NOHFC internship funding. They'll be bringing on a rehab aide. Holland also announced more than $600,000 in NOHFC funding for local businesses, with the lion's share, nearly $540,000, going to the Biopower Energy Corporation to support the expansion of their wood pellet production.
During the campaign, I ran on making sure that Atikokan was included and had all the opportunities available to the rest of the riding. And I'm really happy to support these initiatives and these applications that have come in through the NOHFC fund.
Finally, a number of local and regional community organizations received funds to improve their facilities. A total of $702,000 is going to 5 organizations, namely Community Living Atikokan, 2 women's shelters, and 2 child and family service organizations. The announcement was Holland's first in Atikokan since being elected last June.
It is our pleasure to host Kevin Holland in Atikokan. We love to see him coming, especially when he's coming with some money for us. So, the infrastructure grants that we're getting in Atikokan. Atikokan is, we have a lot of facilities, and there's a lot of upkeep in our facilities, and it's a struggle as it is to maintain what we're doing.
Lee Noonan, TBT News.
A Red Rock man has been charged with arson 9 months after a major house fire in that community. The residential property was in the process of being sold in a tax sale by the township when the fire was discovered. The home on Red Rock Road, number 4, was already engulfed in flames when fire crews arrived on March 18th. Investigators with the Ontario Fire Marshal's office were on scene for several days afterwards, searching for a cause. While OPP monitored the scene, a suspect was taken in for questioning at that time, and now 69-year-old Lloyd Dupuis has been charged with arson. The OPP say Dupuis still owned the home when the fire was started, as the tax sale hadn't been completed yet, but the township of Red Rock is now left with the proceeds. Dupuis was released from custody, and his next court date is scheduled for January 17th. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.